We are live. It is game number 3. Empire.Kas is up 2-0 here over HasuObs. I don't know. Are we going to see a stomp over? I have to say, Husky, no, because after that last game, again, I really feel like if you just go back in the time machine, we hop in the DeLorean, and you change a few of the decisions that were made there, maybe going here, going there, or stopping this or that, the outcome could have gone either way. So I'm just going to say I don't think we're going to see a 4-0, despite the fact that the poll shows that Kas was in a pretty hefty lead.
Yeah, I mean, it's no surprise to me that the polls would show that, but you really got to look at those games and realize HasuObs is playing pretty good in these games, and if he can just step it up just one little notch and maybe just throw Kaz off in the early game a little bit, then he can easily take these games. So we are going to just have to wait and see exactly what happens. Spawning down here in the bottom left side is going to be Empire.Kas, your current reigning champion of this series so far, up 2-0, and his opponent is going to be HasuObs up in the top right side. And as this game is getting underway really quick, guys, I want to mention Team Liquid has released another website, and this is going to be a great place to keep track of what their team is doing. It is TeamLiquidPro.com. So instead of teamliquid.net, it is teamliquidpro.com, and they showed me the website yesterday. It actually is starting to shape up to be pretty awesome. You can track exactly what's going on there. I'm looking at it really quick. It's talking about Huck being in Code S. What a total baller, so definitely go check that out as this game is getting underway. But regardless, I again expect to see on this map a potential macro game. However, of all the maps we've seen so far, this is the one that's kind of laid out the weirdest. If you look at the expansions, the map could just be split in half, and it's a very tall map, Wheat, so I don't know if we'll see as long of games as we've seen on the more square maps.
Yeah, I mean, I love hearing people's opinions on this map because they are all over the board, Husky. Some people are like, yeah, I totally dig this map. I kind of like the way that the terrain works and some of the isolation platforms that we have in between the base. And then you've got other players who are just like, hate it, burn in hell, go away, never want to see you again. I will drop it if I have the chance. But I, as a spectator, really enjoy this map because I think it really there's different utility for each race to be utilized on this map. And I guess like people could say, well, that's like Captain Obvious statement because that's true for any map. But with the platforms and the way that they work out and with the different units that you have, we've seen a lot of cool strategies develop for each of the race based off of the terrain. And, when any map does that, I think it's really, really beneficial to the game. So we are going to see from Kas the Barracks, Tech Lab, and Marauder, and I'm assuming as soon as he's got the gas, actually he's got plenty of gas, so no concussive shells quite yet. He's actually going to go ahead and go another Barracks going to be thrown down.
Yeah, this is really interesting to me that he's expanding so early because he's already seen great success with his early pressure builds. And, I mean, he got his command center before that second barracks. So if he tries to put on any sort of pressure, it's definitely not going to be early and definitely not going to take Hasu by surprise. You can see him right now that Hasu is working on a Zealot rather than getting out 3 Stalkers right away. And, again, he has the Robo before his second Gateway. So both players seem to be teching up here, Wheat, so it could easily transition into a macro game, or one player could kind of not decide to tech and basically try and punish the other one for playing a long macro game.
Yeah, I kind of like what HasuObs is doing here. Basically, like, well, my warp gate research is going to take forever, so I'll put down the 1 gate. I'm surprised he doesn't have a tower here to just make sure that Kas isn't going to throw anything his way, but he's going to get this really, really, really early observer in the grand scheme of the game, and that'll give him that extra eyes from there. If there's another if there's another Marauder-heavy army, which so far it seems to be, a couple Immortals coming out of there would be a great thing, and Kas is going to get his command center morphing into an orbital, SCVs over to that expansion, while the Nexus gets put down for HasuObs.
Now, I was keeping an eye on what this Stalker was doing. That's just now heading back to Asu's main base. Yeah, he definitely might want to grab that tower, although now that he does have the Observer out, he can see exactly what's going on. Thankfully for him, there's no crazy early pressure. You can see that Empire.Kas decided to go more of a tech route, as he does have his stim pack on the way, as the engineering bay just now finishes as well. He will begin getting those upgrades seemingly pretty quickly here, which is what he had really good success with in that first game. So it is a very peculiar position that we find ourselves in, as both players now are going to be expanding here. And one thing about this map is that it's almost like a maze in the center. And that is one thing, as you were mentioning it, why you like it as a spectator. That is why I think it does make a good map to really test the skill of the players. You can argue about the layout, how far away the expansions are and things like that, but the center of the map, unit positioning is probably one of the most difficult maps to position your units on, and so that could easily play a huge role going forward. And I really want to see if Empire.Kas is going to decide to incorporate siege tanks into his play, or if he's just going to continue doing the Marine Marauder, as he does have his factory on the way right now.
Yeah, the factory is going down, and with Stim just finishing up now, and we see those upgrades starting on the on Kaz's side. I definitely, I'm going to be curious to see if he does decide to add those to his army as well. If you can get tanks up on those high grounds to assault the natural expansions, it can be totally devastating, which is one of the reasons why we see HasuObs up on top of this platform, because you don't necessarily want your opponent to get control of that. Observer's going to sit just outside, and we do have a pretty bio-heavy army right now. We are getting a reactor down on the factory and the starport going down, so I don't know. I think he's just going to kind of stick to bio, keep the upgrades going. We got combat shields on the way. The starport will be out soon, and that first Colossus will be finished shortly.
Now, this game could be very different than the last two we've seen, just because Kaz has decided not to be aggressive at all. So we're really going to see how can HasuObs just play a standard game where you're not behind, there's no early pressure or anything like that. And we will see, Weed, as this game goes forward, is he a very solid macro player? He already has his early Colossus again, and this is the situation that HasuObs has yet to find himself in, where he can just play the game he wants to and basically get exactly the units he wants out. And, I mean, it's probably going to be a very different game simply because there's been no early aggression.
Yeah, absolutely none. And, the one thing I think that's going to at least benefit Kaz here is obviously those upgrades, is we're going to have a second Colossus coming out. We don't see much movement coming out for either of the players, so no one committing to anything quite yet. And the ground army, I mean, all the money right now basically being spent on, well, there we have two more gateways going down, but we have extended thermal lance on the way, a second Colossus, and we're going to have a third on the way as well. So it's really going to come down to how well HasuObs is going to be able to pad that army to get ready for this. We are going to have Scouting Factory come out here, and spotted by the Stalker, he'll start to do some damage, and he pulls his army back. So Kaz has no idea what he's got.
Now, there is going to be two medevacs moving out on the right side, which was spotted by that observer, so hopefully HasuObs was paying attention and knows the timing of when these will get here. And this is pretty interesting to me, simply because Kaz is not moving out to the front of the base at all. He's literally just doing his first attack is an 11-minute drop into the main base. So this drop has not been rushed. The flight distance is so long just because this map is tall. So if anything could be in HasuObs' favor, it is going to be right now. He should be able to hold this off quite easily. Kaz is going to be dropping his units at the south side of the base and just now moving out to the center. So HasuObs is having much more time to react to this. I think he'll be fine.
Wow, he does manage to take out a gateway, only losing one Marine and all that. If he drops at the natural, he could do some additional damage, but he might just decide to go ahead and take it easy. Now, Kaz is going to move up to the side. He did watch a probe sneak up here, so he's going to take the time. We do have the drop there at the back of the natural. Probes are moved off of there. Oh, no, we didn't lose any units in that one for Kaz. So, again, another sort of successful drop. Getting those workers off of the mineral line can actually be very beneficial to you in the long run.
And it looks like HasuObs just now starting that weapons level 1 and taking a peek at our Terran's army. He already has that 1-1 attack, which is really important to mention that most Protoss players tend to get the armor upgrades pretty early against a Terran player. And there's a drop, by the way, in the top center as well. Going to unpower these two gateways, the slight nerf to the pylons, forcing the building placement here to need to be a little bit better. Another gateway could easily go down if Kaz decides to focus that down. But yeah, again, HasuObs opting to go for the early attack upgrades because he's going for those early Colossus, which extremely benefit from that attack upgrade. And so as long as he can hold this off long enough, he should be okay. Although 3 force fields really being used there to only kill units that were already trapped in his base in the bottom right side. And a pylon going down, blocking the command center down in the bottom right side. So really there's lots of multitasking going on again for both players.
tons. Kaz is going to retreat out of here, but oh no! Well, he only has some sentries, so lucky for him those stalkers weren't with the army. As oh, I love this. He splits off his medevacs again. Now, the Protoss did identify, so the Protoss is probably like, okay, well, he's coming, but actually the Protoss really is coming, and I think right now Kaz has to be asking himself, do I have enough? I've split my army up a little bit here with these drops. Oh no, if this little group gets taken out, I don't know that Kaz can hold this. I really don't.
Right now, 139 supplied at 145. The probe once again blocking the command center on the right side. Probably the most annoying probe I have ever seen. So it's going to come down to the positioning of these Colossus. Can he get in range of the bunkers while still utilizing that high ground advantage? And the supply is super even right now, and the worker count not too far apart either. And here we go. So what we're talking about is using the terrain to your advantage. You can see the Colossus going to take out that first bunker, and that just makes the defenses that much more weak. And so now all of a sudden Empire.Kas is on the defensive, probably for one of the first times we've seen in this entire series. And this is either going to allow HasuObs to warp in reinforcements to what he's doing right now, or expand during this, or do both. We'll decide, or we'll see what he decides to do. But here comes the attacker now. He is out for blood. He wants to end this game right now. The Zealots are going to be running in there. They do not have Zealot legs though, and there is only +1 attack on these Colossus, trying to do as much splash damage as possible. But there are so many Marauders that once they break free from these force fields could cause a lot of damage, taking out the sentries easily as well. It looks like HasuObs once again forced to retreat here. I think a lot of it is again the upgrade advantage, but no, he's going to be warping in more reinforcements here.
Yeah, you know, he still has all those Colossus up, so as long as he works with his reinforcements smartly here, and he is going to go ahead and move these Zealots forward, just have him cushion a lot of that damage, and, you know, he lost no Colossus in that, while we're still seeing a lot of this Bioforce being whittled down. Again, a lot of Marauders following. There's the last Viking going down, and with this natural going down, this is not going to be good here for Kaz. Although he had some great drops here, I think losing a little bit of focus, and HasuObs just finding a great time to attack. More units just pouring in here for HasuObs, and there it is, the GG, as he brings one back in his favor. Hasu is now on the board, and, you know, Husky, I like to say it, but we were right. It didn't go any sort of crazy stomp as Hasu. He started warming up in game 1, taking it into game 2, real close game, and in game 3, some very solid decisions by him on when to attack and how to defend, and it worked out very well, ultimately resulting in a victory.
Yeah, and one thing you mentioned really quick there towards the end, Wheat, that's very important, is the timing he did was basically perfect, because he knew that that command center was floating around trying to find a place to land, and that probe kept blocking it with pylons, being very effective with that. And during that time, I mean, HasuObs made a very distinct decision. He doesn't have an expansion on the way in the top left side. He instead was just using all of his resources on attacking units, and he realized, well, if I'm behind in workers and behind in a command center, that means my army for a couple of minutes can just be slightly more effective and more powerful than my opponent. So even though he had a slight upgrade disadvantage, I saw the replay open here, and the next attack upgrade for the Terran player was done in 8 Blizzard seconds, which is like 1 nanosecond in real time. So that +1 attack was just barely almost completed here at the end of the game for a Terran player. And so again, HasuObs utilizing a window there where if he would have sat back, tried to catch up in the macro, he would have been not only behind in the macro, but also behind in the upgrade. So he realized, okay, well, I'm going to punish him for going so upgrade heavy and expansion heavy. So again, great play there by HasuObs. A close game we've seen really in all 3 games. It hasn't been as entertaining, I say sarcastically, as the GSL finals, if you guys haven't seen those. But yeah, I mean, so far here, this definitely is shaping up to, it looks like the finals of a tournament, but is right now just the 3rd and 4th place match.
Yeah, and the next map is going to be GSL Terminus RE, another interesting map that comes from the GSL camp. Of course, this one having some rotational symmetry. And based off of where these guys spawn, it could be very interesting. Anytime you get close positions, or adjacent positions, I should just say, one player typically has the advantage in all that. If that player is a Terran, it can be a kind of beefy advantage. So that could certainly come into play here, as I'm pretty much ready to go for game 4, sir, if you are.
I am absolutely ready here. I've just been kind of checking out Twitter. People are loving these games. They are pretty epic games. I don't think we could ask for much better in these games, and we're just going to have to see, can HasuObs deal with the multitasking that we've seen so far from Kaz in every single game. I definitely think that is defining this series, is just the multitasking from Kaz and HasuObs' either ability or disability to deal with that multitasking. So again, we're going to be watching out for that in the next map. We already mentioned it is a huge macro map, so expect once again to see a mid or late game because neither player has been able to knock each other out in the early game, and I'm curious if they are going to try and do that in one of these games again, but so far not huge success with that either way. So anyways, we are going to go ahead and we move on to game number 4. I'm super excited. I believe everyone out there wants me to shut up with my annoying squeaky voice and get into these games, so we're going to do just that right after this.